Good afternoon. This is the LouRaePodcast. I'm your host, Austin Kors, and today I have Ashya Watkins. She's an artist, a child therapist, and a coach here in Louisville. Ashya, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're a local here, that's right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, growing up, you had quite a big family, and you told me your mom's kind of a crafter, your dad's a bit of a doodler, and you and your sisters kind of shared in that creativity. What was that like?
Growing up, I guess my first inspiration going into art was my father. Whenever he worked late nights and we'd be home during the day, so if he wanted to leave us like a note or tell us something, whenever we woke up in the morning, he would leave us like little notes on the kitchen table, and it might have, said like, "Hey, I got a Subway sandwich for you," or good grades, and then he would draw us with like big cheeks or big kneecaps or just anything to be hilarious. But he would do like cartoon doodles. So I would kind of mimic those sometimes, and if I wrote a note back to him, I would try to like put a doodle with it as well. My mom, she's always been a crafter my whole life. She does a lot of centerpieces and event decorating now. So that's just one inspiration that I get from her, of course. It's just I'm stepping into that creative mindset. As far as my sisters, we all are kind of in the artistic world. From whenever I was growing up, my oldest sister, she would draw from like anime scenes that she would watch, video games that she would play, cartoons that she was watching. So then I would kind of mimic some of those pieces as well. So I guess that was kind of like my first like introduction into like, okay, we kind of have like an artistic family. My little sister, she started, doing like some doodles and drawings as well a few years back with me. So we all just kind of have been in this creative wave. A big family and definitely big supporters as well from growing up.
You weren't always so interested in art. You mostly focused on your sports for a little bit of time, right? What made you transition?
I danced most of my life, and then I started running track in the 7th grade. When I got to high school, I started taking track more serious, but I was injured my sophomore year. So whenever I went through that injury, I think that was like my first moment where I had to like just sit and figure out what else can I do other than an athletic ability. Growing up, my dad, he really pushed a lot of sports and just hard work on us. He only has 3 girls, so he always says that, he raised us like boys, and I can't disagree. But whenever I was injured with track, I was down for 6 months on rehab, and then a year and a half kind of just for the recovery process. I went to Ballard High School, and I took a lot of art courses there. Whenever I had my injury, I was injured in my right hip. I had a hip labrum surgery. I couldn't do anything else besides sit in my bed or sit on my couch. And that's just whenever I started picking up like paintbrushes and pencils, and I would start sketching and things then. Whenever I could return back to school, I was in like 4 classes of art for like 4 of my periods. So it just kind of became my home space and my safe space. So that's whenever I would start testing out a lot of the different mediums in the art room and trying to just start exploring my talents. I didn't really know what I wanted to create. Like I said, I went to Ballard, and a lot of the students there, they would do this art show. I was never really chosen to do the art show just because my teacher, he would always say like, you paint or you do all this stuff so well, but you don't have like one theme. It was just kind of like I was painting flowers, then I was painting myself. I might have painted a track scene or my track backpack from like a nationals event that I was in. But I just never had one like focused series that I was doing. So I think over time I've been trying to still find my style or what my actual theme is for my art. But that is definitely where I started getting exposed into the arts and learning that I have this talent of expression and a way that I found to heal through that injury that I went through.
If you look at a lot of your art, you see a lot of people and a lot of scenes of humanity in that. And you always grew up around a lot of community, either from your family or from your friends, your church. How did that help build your artistic career?
Definitely, community has been a big part of my life. One statement that I always say is that it takes a village to raise a child, and I definitely had my village growing up. So I was definitely big in the church family. I probably have like 4 different church families, honestly, but I went to Community Missionary Baptist. And that's whenever I started learning how to reach out to the community. I was a part of a group called Newburgh Youth Council, and we put on different events for like poverty, students that were struggling academically. And I was at a young age doing this kind of work. We would put on like garden events and all that for the community. So I just knew that Giving back was always a goal, and then also like recognizing those that help lift you up was definitely something that I wanted to show within my art journey. As far as the community, like I said, I come from a big family. So like my mom's side of the family, she's the baby of 9, and then my dad is the baby of 5. So huge family. And that's one thing, like with my art, that people have told me, if Asia's coming out, she's gonna bring a crowd. If it's one person, 3 people, a whole crowd full of people, like she's gonna have somebody with her. And I love that, just knowing that my village is behind me and supports me.
You've been described as a finger painter, or you've said maybe a body painter, but you use a lot of parts of your form and your body to kind of create and shape what you're trying to show. What is it like using your body as a tool, and what do you get out of it?
So honestly, that's kind of what brought me into the art world. You know, a few years back, I had a medical situation that happened to me, and I had to really learn how to accept my identity again and accept my body. Growing up, like all my friends have always told me like, oh, you're so cute, you're so small and so petite and all these other things. But, you know, I just never really understood. I would just would look at other women like, you're so curvy and you're so beautiful. Whenever I had this situation happen to me, it really was a downfall for me. Like I had to really look in the mirror and tell myself like I am still beautiful. So using my body with my art, I think that that's kind of how I connected to my childhood again. Because like I said, I grew up dancing. One of my favorite movies is Honey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's just a complete dance movie. Some people hate it, some people love it, but that's my favorite movie. So I did this, the musical dance piece that's actually up in the gallery in LouRae. I said that it's just finger painted, but I used my whole body with it. Like I was using my elbow, I was using my knees, I was using my toes, and it like just all parts of my body, and just the movement of that, getting to know how my body could move, just expressing it and just feeling, I guess, comfortable in that space at that moment really helped me have a release. I think that I am definitely a person that is more of a extrovert side than the introvert side. So I love that I can incorporate that with my art. As far as finger painting or like using my body to connect with my art, I think it's more of a sentimental and sensory feel. I think that's kind of how I connect with my kids as well. Like you mentioned, I am a therapist for children with autism, and a lot of their communication is through sensory movement. So I think that getting to touch my paint and feel it on me and then just put it on the canvas, it helps me connect with the canvas and me more.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of communication through your art too whenever you look at it. I think it says a lot through not only the movements that you've obviously put into it and that it shows off to the people experiencing it, but I think it also communicates a lot of either vulnerability and a lot of personality to your pieces. Would you say so?
Yes, I would agree. I think that my art journey has definitely been something that has been very vulnerable for me. Like at first, art was just a healing tool for me. Whenever I had my experience in 2020 and I was diagnosed with this situation, art was a release for me. I couldn't even explain it. Like I couldn't put things into words. I found myself being in a lot of arguments with people, like close friends, family, mothers. It was really a dark moment for me, but being able to bring brightness from my painting, put colors on my hands, and just kind of release that was definitely something that was huge for me. I grew up in a great family. Like my family is so supportive. But I think that something that has shielded me was that I grew up in an environment where like we wasn't able to communicate our emotions or identify how we felt. So I think that that's what I'm trying to do with my art is express how I still feel beautiful, how I still feel powerful, and I want like my colors and the shapes that I use in those pieces to exemplify that. So one thing that I say with my art is that, again, like I use it as a healing tool, and it's a way for me to connect with others. So you mentioned in high school, I had a hip injury, so sports was really huge. Like I thought, I'm going to the Olympics, I'm gonna be this all-time runner. Like it was all of a sudden planned, right? Like I had the times for it, I had the schools coming for me, the coaches looking after me, and then I get a hip injury. So it's like, what do I do? And I found myself picking up paintbrushes then. And that was maybe 2014, maybe a little younger than that. And then going into 2017, my family, we actually lost our home. And that was something that really took a shift in my life. It was like a whole 360, just adapting to a whole new world and a whole new lifestyle. So again, I found myself picking up a paintbrush then. And then along in 2020, whenever I was diagnosed with my medical situation, I found myself again using it as a healing tool to get through this trauma. So my message whenever I do my art, or what I want to represent whenever I'm showing up as an artist, is to help heal and connect with others, hopefully save someone else from going into that dark path.
So what is your process to go about even beginning that? Because that's a lot of deep ingrained and emotional trauma, and it takes a lot of time and work and effort to work through all of that. So where do you even begin?
I guess that's where I'm learning self-care at this moment. One big thing for me is time management. So I've definitely tried to put myself on a schedule. In 2020, I was diagnosed with an STD. That's what the medical situation was. I think that I just needed to find moments when I could be in those emotions versus reacting in anger with others or reacting in those arguments with everyone else. I was losing everybody, honestly. When I say friends, I'm not just talking about acquaintances or, friends that you might see just walking in the hallway. No, these were my homegirls, these were my boys, my brothers, my sisters, people that I looked as aunties and other mothers and things like that. It was definitely a big shift in my life. The process for me was learning how to return back to myself. I have a friend, she went to college with me, and she does an event right now called Moving with Purpose. And I went to one of her events a couple Saturdays ago. That was one of the phrases that she said, was that she thinks that whenever we are adapting and changing in our life, that isn't really about changing or becoming a new person. It's about returning to your old self. And I thought that was really heavy for me, especially when I would talk to some of my old friends. I have this one friend, and he called me, and he was like, whenever I used to talk to you, you was the person that would tell me to pray. You was the person that tell me to go to church, turn to God. He was just telling me, I don't hear those things from you anymore. And that was really a almost stabbed to me, in my chest, right? Because I wasn't showing up as this godly woman or this, I don't even know the word I'm looking for that moment, but I know that I was in a dark place. I couldn't give people those answers because I think I was looking for that healing source or advice myself. But knowing that people looked at me for that motivation or for that inspiration let me know that I needed to change something about myself. So within my art, I used to paint because I'm kind of a self-taught artist. I know I went to Ballard and I took these art classes, but I didn't do anything in college. I went to school for special education, so everything was just ABA driven. But then stepping out whenever I had these traumatic situations happen in my life, I went to an art exhibit called Lotus Balm Studios, and he looked at my art and he was like, start using pink and yellows. We need it to be a little bit more brighter. Ever since then, I have started using those pink and yellows, and my pieces have been brighter. And I think that just represents how I want to show up in a room. So whenever I walk into the room, I want them to feel the presence of me. I want them to see this beautiful woman. I want to see this independent healing woman. So whenever you see my art, I want that to show the same thing, that it's bright and beautiful. It's almost like I'm stepping into a second world. I feel like a lot of times I am almost in a fantasy world and just trying to escape these thoughts that I had of what I went through. So yes, I just hope that whenever people do view my art, that they can see that lighter side of me, that brighter side, that softer side, that healing side of me. My artistry is all about healing and connecting with others. Because, it's hard to connect back with people that you were once close to, and maybe they weren't there for you whenever you really had your hardship in life. But the communities and the people that I've met along my way has really been a life changer.
Yeah, I remember you telling me more life, more colors.
Yes, so with that experience, I was in a class in college. I went to Western Kentucky University. I took a helping skills course, sorry. The teacher one day, she was just like, you know what, you all need to debrief. And she was like, just go out in the hallway for 4 minutes, just walk the hallways and just see what resonates on your mind. When we came back in, she wanted us to write whatever it was on the board. So everyone else was coming in writing song lyrics, maybe a book that they had just read, maybe a quote or something. And I don't know why, but the words more life, more colors just kept ringing in my head during those whole 4 minutes. So when I walked into the class, that's what I wrote down. And I didn't really know at that time that colors or painting was what I needed. Because again, I'm in this mindset of like, oh, I'm studying special education. I'm going to be this teacher. I'm going to be a principal for a school. Not even knowing that my whole degree changed, honestly. I was in education. I ended up with psychology. So that's why I work as a therapist now with children with autism. But just those 4 minutes really changed my life to let me know that, honestly, like the more I painted was the more that my life was going to change. And like I've had way more life experiences since I began painting and like really dedicating myself to my artistry.
It's quite a triumph, I think, you describing all of these harrowing experiences, all these life changes, these very human situations that we find ourselves in, and crawling our way out of them and still finding the light after being surrounded by so much darkness and so much change, things that you never thought would happen to you, and so you have to overcome them. It seems like not only is your art based on overcoming and growing from those challenges, your very self. So what are some words of advice for maybe young artists that were in the position that you were in, just starting out? How can they find the same success you have? Because you've worked with many kinds of different organizations, Bourbon with Heart, BMG. Tell me a bit more about that.
I guess as far as like to a younger artist, or when I think about my kids that I work with, I am very inclusive with a lot of different communities as far as that. So I did a counseling event in 2022 where I went to Atlanta, and I was the counselor for some of the students at Georgia State. There were some high school students transitioning into college. And then, of course, I work with children with autism daily. And then within my church, we have like step teams, choir practices, and all those kind of things. So to the younger artists, I would just let them know that, one, I want to be there and be their listening ear, because I think that a lot of times it's hard for our youth to put their thoughts into words. So one thing I always say is, even if it sounds spacey, just talk to me, because sometimes just talking it out gets those thoughts and those emotions out. The next thing is to show up. I think that it's hard for people to show up sometimes because they feel like they're not included in those environments. Maybe they're just looking at how media is and how people dress or how people talk, things like that, but they don't really know that they're, included in that environment as well. So I guess the advice that I want to give to a younger person would just be to show up, and you're in charge of writing your own story, but you have to be present to tell your own story. So that would be that advice as far as the next young artist.
What was your mindset when you first set out? How did you get the attention of so many organizations, and how did you find success in your artistic journey?
Honestly, again, it just started off as a healing tool for me. So in 2020, I was diagnosed with that situation, and then, like I said, I'm an extrovert. We all know that 2020 was a hardship for all of us anyways, because we're all locked in our houses. But I was definitely the person who was like, no, I have to get out. I need to talk to people. So that's when I decided to host my first event. And it was just called First Event. I had people come out. They came to a sip and paint with me. We connected. We painted there. I showed some of my first art pieces that I had been making through college. One of my first pieces was actually, I titled her Crown. She's a woman sitting in thought. She has all these books on top of her head. The very top is labeled Her Dream. Then underneath it, you see her planner, her journal, maybe a photo memory book from her family. There was one title, year of 1997, just the year that I was born. There's a Bible that's written under there. And then I also had a book that was called Watkins and Floyd, because my mom's maiden name is Floyd. And then, of course, I'm a Watkins from my dad's side. And just my family has just been such a huge inspiration to me. Again, we're so big that honestly, if there was nobody else in the world, I feel like I could have learned enough from them. So I created that first piece, and a lot of times when people look at that girl with the crown head, they always ask me why I put the expression on her face that way. And at first I just would say she's just a woman in thought, she's transitioning, trying to find her next purpose. But the more that people have tuned into that, I've started telling my truth and my story, just exactly what I've went through. I found that telling my own narrative is what has helped me progress in my artistry. There was a woman that I met at an event just here coming into the new year, and she questioned me on this piece, and she said, why did you make her face that way? And I said the same thing I just told you, she was just a woman in thought. And she was like, nah, that's not good enough. And I was like, what do you mean that's not good enough? But honestly, then that's when I shared with her, I'm actually overcoming being diagnosed with an STD. Then she was like, that's what it is. She was like, that's your story. That's what you need to drive on. And honestly, like, that is what I need to drive on. I think it's the new identity that I had to step into and I had to accept for myself. And when I think about my kids, like, I always think, can I give the next young girl the advice of how to heal through this, or how to, work her life through that. As far as everything else with my journey, I had my second show in 2021, and that one was labeled Next Phase. I didn't know at the time that I was going through my next phase, or why I even titled it that way, but when I think back, a lot of the pieces resonated with what I was feeling and where I was going. So the first piece that I put inside of this reveal, because there was 5 pieces that I revealed during this event in 2020. The first piece that I did, it was like an abstract piece, and I literally just threw colors at this canvas. Like, it didn't matter. I just picked up a color, just threw it. If my dog came in the way, I put his paw on the piece and I put his stamp on it as well. And I had all these colors at the bottom. And then at the top, it was like just gray. And I felt like that's kind of how my life was at that time in that period. Like, I was letting the dark side of me like overtake the color and the beauty of me. So when I think back on that piece now, it's just so beautiful, like how I've overcame those gray or dark moments. There's 2 other pieces where I had one girl, she had like a fiery background, but she was sad. And then the second piece to that was like this man, and I thought he was so handsome, but when everybody asked me about him, they said that he was an asshole. So I just kind of resonated with that, like, maybe he is. And I think that might have been what my relationship that I was coming out of represented. And then I revealed another piece where there were 3 girls, but the more that everyone like got to know this piece, like, everybody that sees it, they're like, that's you and your sisters. Like, yes, that's me and my sisters. Even one of the girls, she has a fro, and then she's wearing a skate, and that represents like my little sister, because she loves to skate, and she always has like different hairstyles and growing into her natural with her hair. There was a girl in front, she's a little shorter, she had a ponytail and wore a hat, had on like some shorts, kind of just like a button-down t-shirt on. I think that represented my older sister. And then there was another girl on the side where she had like longer hair, was a hat on, and then I kind of put her in like motorcycle gear. That represented me. But like, even those 3 pieces just represented me and my sisters. Like how I said at the beginning, my dad raised us to, he says that he raised us to be little boys. And I think that showed like the masculine and feminine of us. My sisters are my backbone. So again, that was like another excellent piece to put inside this exhibit. I had my crown girl represented there. And then the last piece was just a self-portrait, because I think that I was just trying to accept myself and accept the beauty of me. Put a blue background on her just to kind of represent like my Pisces season. There were some like green, like abstract pieces and strokes that were happening beside her, and I think that was just representing more of me feeling grounded in the time that I was in. So those 5 pieces were revealed at this next phase in 2021. I didn't really know I was stepping into my next phase of life. And I say that because in 2022, that's whenever my artistry just started to take off. I was offered to do a mural at Thomas Jefferson Middle School. So that was my first mural, and like, everyone just loved it. I put like quotes around it. There was so much going on in that mural, actually. And then one of the students stayed after school one day, and he was like, "What are you painting on this wall?" And I said, "Just inspiration for you all when you're walking down the hall." And he kept looking at it, and he kind of hung out with me for like 8 or 10 minutes. And I was like, "What do you think I should put on here?" He was like, "I just want like some quotes." He was like, "I want something I can just read." And I just almost cried when he told me this because I wasn't even thinking about putting words on this like mural. Because one, I think my handwriting is terrible and my letter art was not the best. But I did that for him. So if you ever like are able to view that mural, you'll see that I put questions at the side. I said like, "What makes you happy?" I put things that said like bloom, invest, love yourself, feel beautiful, accomplish, discover yourself. Like, I put all these words around this piece for that student, honestly. So maybe when they walk those halls, that they can resonate on those words and also see themselves in the pictures that I put in there as well. So I did my first mural 2022. Again, I said like I was spending time in Atlanta. I worked with some students at Georgia State. I was like the counselor over some girls. I think that was just the time that I needed to be in as well, to kind of just hear that purity that youth hold of discovering yourself again. And because I kind of felt like I was discovering myself again during that stage, even though I was an older woman. But also seeing these girls and seeing the things that they were going through, that helped me kind of wake up in a moment, because I was so blinded by what I've been through and so down in my dark moment. I wasn't healing. Like, I couldn't really feel like I could give those girls any advice. It was almost like they was giving me advice, and that's backwards, right? So I had to figure out what I needed to do to show the growth and healing that I have done from accepting myself again. Whenever I came back, that's when I started using more colors. In 2023, that's when I joined Bourbon with Heart and BMG. Bourbon with Heart was awesome because, I've lived in Louisville my whole life. Like, the only time I was away from Louisville was while I was in college, and I was in Bowling Green, so still not really far, but it was away from the city, and so that was different. So whenever I joined Bourbon with Heart, like, I've just learned so much more of my city. Like, even everything that happens on Main Street, understanding, like, getting connected with this gallery, other galleries, Top Magazine, all these things that Bourbon with Heart brought to me, connecting with other artists. Bourbon with Heart is so cool. It's not just a canvas. We're actually never painting on a canvas, to actually say that. The first exhibit they did was like barrels, and then the exhibit that I was in was for bow ties. So they had like wooden bow ties made from barrels, and we had to decorate from those. I did one young girl that was just looking at the city and enjoying, like, Thunder over Louisville, the derby races, the fireworks. Thunder over Louisville is huge for me. My Aunt Jackie, she is a part of like everything Pegasus parade from the beginning to the end. I've worked probably all those events my whole life, all the balloon festivals, all those things. So, like, again, how I said, like, just returning to my younger self has been like the tool and the journey that has helped me progress more with my artistry. The second piece was a woman. She was naked, but you could only see like her chest up, and she had like a fro and a lot of floral in her, and the flowers actually covered her eyes, just so that you couldn't really know what she was looking at. During that time, I was just thinking about that quote that everyone says, like, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that's so true. Like, and I think that was something for me that a lot of people that might have heard my story, like, maybe they were putting these negative connotations on what I was going through. I had to turn the other shoulder to those things, and I had to represent myself and know that I was still beautiful, and that things that I were doing were still powerful and important. So that was Bourbon with Heart, and then now I'm in their exhibit now where we're doing like ballerina shoes and decorating a bourbon bottle, so that will be coming up in April. But then also in 2023, that is when I joined BMG. Fonz has been great. Like, honestly, connecting with all these different Black artists in the city has been amazing.
What is BMG?
So I believe it stands for Brown McKenzie Group. So there's two men, Ethan McKenzie and then Fonz Brown, and then they put on these events and sponsorships for just different Black artists around around the city of Louisville. So yeah, so connecting with other Black artists has been great. I'm a Black girl raised out in J-Town, so I feel like I'm kind of away from my community sometimes. So being able to connect with Black artists in this way has been great, and just feel inclusive and understanding more about my culture, more about what the city is about. It's been really uplifting and fulfilling for my journey. Also in 2023, I started really understanding that my art wasn't only a tool of healing, but it was the way that I was connecting with others, and it was also the way that I was like reaching new heights in my life. Like, I never really knew that my art would kind of be, I've almost been in like all the historical buildings in Louisville at this point. Like, Bourbon with Heart took me to the Galt House. I've been in Melwood Art Gallery. I've been in Roots 101 now. Now I'm in LouRae. I'm on Main Street. Lotus Bomb Studio that I was telling you about, that's kind of like on Floyd Street or Broadway. So I'm just hitting all these areas of Louisville that I just never thought I would. It's just been an amazing journey, so I think that that's how I'm progressing. But showing up is number one. Like, if I didn't show up, or if I didn't connect, or if I didn't reach out, if I didn't fill out these applications, like, I probably wouldn't be where I am. And not staying in that dark place. Like, I could have just stayed down and just felt like life ended whenever I got that call that day from that doctor. But I didn't take it that way. I took it another way, and I'm so thankful for that.
And I think you're a great image for Louisville in that way, working through a lot of the downtrodden times or the harrowing experiences and kind of building something new from that. And I think you share that with the city as we're trying to uplift it and create a brand new image of growth and community. You once said you want everybody to be outside in Louisville. Tell me more about that. What do you envision?
So, that's kind of been my, not joke, but serious statement, honestly, is that I'm going to get everybody out on Main Street, right? But my goal of that is just I don't know, just Louisville, like, even when I travel, I just was in Wisconsin, like, last week, and they were all telling me, like, nah, we knew you were from Louisville. Like, y'all just have this language or this dialogue about y'all where, like, you know when you're from Louisville. And I hear that so much. Like, even when I was in Bowling Green, people would say that. They was like, just the way you talk, we know you're from Louisville. And I think that Louisville has that impact. And, you know, I think that we should be outside more. I think that we should understand the beauty of our city more. There's so many creators here, and I think that just discovering us and putting us all in those same spaces is going to be beautiful. And I want to see the city out. I think that you know, our Broadway and our Main Street and just everywhere, honestly, downtown and uptown, wherever we're at, has so much to give and to offer. So my goal is, even if I'm just sitting on a corner and every Saturday and just live painting and people come out and view that, I think that would be just a way to first connect and get the community out. You know, we all need those spaces where we can feel open and feel safe to communicate and to gather. I think that's going to be the next movement that's going to change the city.
We can't wait.
Yeah.
We're really excited. And that's our goal too, is trying to build a place where artistic and creative people can find an outlet and really share their voices to the image of Louisville, show the rest of the country or even the world really what we have to offer, because it's just not been given its own spotlight yet. So what do people have to look forward to for you this year? You're always busy, always doing things.
No, thank you. Yeah. As far as art, my next big thing that I have coming up, again, I'm with Bourbon with Heart again this year. So we're going to be putting on an exhibit, be on display from April 11th through the 25th. But it's at the Mercedes-Benz East Louisville, their newly renovated base there. And we'll be putting on our ballet shoes and bourbon bottles. So there was 20 artists selected in that. All of us decorated one ballet shoe and then a bourbon bottle. So that will be going on there. As far as me, I kind of have some personal projects that I'm working on. Like I said, I'm accepting my body and accepting myself and my new identity. So I'm working on a series right now that's called Acknowledge Yourself. I painted myself in the nude. I actually gave myself like a plant head just to show growth. But I think that each body figure, maybe I'll have maybe a missing arm or a missing leg or something to put something else there, just because I'm really big on the abstract and including so much of just what goes on in your life in your pieces. But I'm doing Acknowledge Yourself, so I'm taking different body shapes and different faces for that. I actually have a sorority sister that was so interested that she created her own poem from it, so I thought that was beautiful, just to know that, like, me telling my story and expressing and showing her how I have healed, that she feels like, you know, now she is motivated to heal herself. So that's one project that I'm doing, Acknowledge Yourself. The second project that I'm doing, I'm working on a series right now called First Glance at 2024. I feel like this is my turnaround year. You know, I went through all the hardships, the dark stories, all that jazz that, you know, we kind of went through. And this year is about stepping through those things. So there's all these different women. They all have been Black women so far. I think that I'm really big on hair as well. I grew up with alopecia, so I'm working on, you know, just like expressing just all these different things about myself that might seem, I don't know, I just want to, like, people might say negative things about, but I'm bringing beauty and positivity to it. So there's different hairstyles going on. Like, some girls have puffballs, some have bantu knots, some have straight hair, some have afros. I'm trying to do one with locks right now. That's the next piece that I'm doing. And I'm actually live painting Lock Girl on Sunday. But yeah, so it's First Glance at 2024. So there's all these like delusional mask figures. Like if it's an eyeball, it might be a flower, or an ear with a butterfly. In the lock, it might be actually like a vine of leaves or something like that coming out. Just all these things that happen, and these delusional or overthinking thoughts that we have, and then they're dressed so beautiful. They're just walking through those things. I think that's what 2024 is about, is just coming through everything that you've been through. I started off just having only 4 figures in mind, but the way that it's laid out, that I've done one every month this year. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do all 12 months. Another one that I'm working on, also in 2022, I visited in Arizona. There were these robots that were making self-portraits of me. I had to sit for 20 minutes. And they created a self-portrait of me. Behind the robots, there was like this other mural of like just other people that they have, that the robots had finished. So I thought that was just so cool to have like this mural of people. And again, like resonating on that community thought of how I have transitioned through life. So I'm doing that. It's called Project 150. I've worked on 75 pieces. And then one of my friends saw the piece and she was like, no, start completely over. And I was like, what do you mean? I just did 75 sketches. You want me to start over? She was like, they're not mirroring each other. And whenever she told me that, that's really when I started kind of adapting into more of like that detailed work as an artist, like really paying attention to how much shading I put in hair, eye shapes. If I'm only showing their shoulders up, then like everybody needs to have shoulders up, or whatever that looked like. So however they can mirror, that's something that I'm working on with Project 150. Project 150 has been so cool because I feel like I am building my own community from it. Every piece or every person that I have sketched, like I can tell you a story that either we had or a connection that we had from it. When all 150 are done, I don't know exactly when that will be, but when all 150 are done, like I know that I'll be able to tell you a story about each person in that mural. There's people from gas stations that have sent me pieces. There was a lady at a hair store that sent me a piece or a picture of herself to put into it. So it's just been a really humbling and beautiful experience to do Project 150. And then the last one that I'm doing is actually my middle school that I went to Newburgh Middle. They reached out to me. Whenever I go to these events and if I do a career day or a student speech, I bring a canvas with me and I allow the students to put their handprint on a canvas as just a way to leave their mark in the world. And then because I've been so blessed to have all these opportunities to go to different galleries and different shows, I take these pieces with me and, I tell the kids, like, you're an artist now. Like, your piece is going with me. Like, you've left your mark. Just the smiles and the comments that I get back from the kids is always hilarious and just so, like, warm feeling. So, yes, I've done 2 schools now. I have Rangeland Elementary and the Newburgh Middle, and just hoping for more schools to come. And I call that my hand project. On Rangeland, it was like 80 kids, and then on Newburgh, it was like 300 kids. So it's just kind of cool how the colors that they choose, how they want to put their hands on. Some of the kids have tried to like print a peace sign on there, and I'm just like, can't do that. Like, just do your handprint. So it's just really humbling to see that all come together. So those are the things that we can look forward to, and as the year goes on, just kind of living in the moment and just using this again as a healing tool and a way to connect with others. And
where can people find more information on you and kind of keep up with what you're doing?
So I'm on Instagram. That's just going to be Ashya Denise, Ashya, and then Denise. And then I'm on Facebook as well, and that's Ashya Watkins.
Well, Ashya Watkins, paragon of virtue for the community and kind of the values that any city would want to have. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much, Austin. I appreciate this.
Of course.
Thank you.